Pinkerton's Ghosts is a horror anthology podcast by Superversive Radio, with no affiliation with any detective agency, person, real or imagined, or the dark forces of Outre-Terre. It is not intended for children.
Paranormal Pinkerton Statement Number 3-594. My name is Gary Mikos. I am sitting in my dining room across from Jim Donavan. I have written out my statement and am reading from it. Yeah. How should...
Don't worry too much about the details. We do this all the time. Just start at the beginning. Where did you first hear about the supernatural as it relates to this case?
Right. I knew my great-grandmother. She was a Polish woman who married a Slav and came over. Superstitious as the day is long. Died 115 years old and a day, if you'll believe it. The stories she told. I'm willing to believe anything now. I was the carer for her towards the end, before she needed the professional help a farm boy like me couldn't give. She was always walking about, checking hedges and stones. She said it was important for our ownership of the land, and that was just the beginning. She owned the farm, and had secretly willed it to me at her death. The family wasn't too happy a 19-year-old inherited the farm, but I made it clear that I was going to fight for my inheritance. Well, fine. Took a few Christmases before I was invited over to Grandpa's house, let me tell you. Things smoothed out. What they don't know is that my ownership is entirely connected to a set of chores. Besides the usual farm equipment, I have to maintain a rock fence on its north border, a hedge on its eastern border, and a regular old wood fence on the south and west, among other things noted in her diary. It's the reason I'm alive today. I'll let you scan it in the office if you want, Jim, but it stays with me. It's got whole stories, lists of monsters and how to beat 'em. I took it for a great set of bedtime entertainment, and had half a mind to edit it a little and publish it as a fairy tale book, before the events of last year. Thinking about it, though, guys like you would probably stop a real book of fairies and monsters from being published, at least without edits. You're shaking your head, but I don't think. It's not relevant. The one that nearly got me was called a Rusalka. I did some research, and there are differences in species. All of them include a woman, usually a murder victim. The Polish ones are women who, in despair, have drowned themselves, or were drowned. It's a love thing. Or a redhead thing in some stories. I'll go into more detail later. My farm is the last of them before the Middle San Niam forest. I mostly grow Orsanto bluegrass, and... Why did you...
Old friends. Keep going. Oh, I'd like a sample, please.
Sure. And hazelnuts. Those are my two big sellers. Grass seed is one of Oregon's biggest exports. We're talking hundreds of millions. I don't see a point to gambling on crops. Feels bad when the government pays you to burn a crop no one needs. Happens all the time. I fill up that time with other projects. But mostly, I like to explore the area. Oregon is absolutely full of natural beauty. I can't imagine living anywhere else. When the affairs of the world get too much, nothing beats jumping on my horse Toe Stepper. It was during the riots when I first met her. The Portland riots were bad. People don't talk about how they spilled out of the city when the mayor didn't want to have one of them autonomous zones set up. They ran around, stealing what they could, but the pièce de résistance didn't happen until dawn. You see, they burned down an old Baptist church, for no other reason than it stood there, reminding them they had souls, and that they would be judged. They desecrated the cemetery, too, tore down the markers over the paupers' graves, and did unspeakable things on those grounds. No cameras, no news vans. Even the newspaper didn't mention it until page 9. Absolutely disgusting. I did my chores, saddled Toe Stepper, and headed out into the wilderness to calm myself down. There's a lot of trails up and down that area, but the best ones are unmarked, and probably forged by yours truly when I was a kid. There are rivers and fords all crisscross the whole place like veins. You could ride for miles, never hear a car, see another person, or be reminded that the modern world existed at all. Before you go, you really should take a walk out into it. The sun plays on the hills and sets their shadows to motion. The trees are filled with birds just tweeting their hearts out. There's hill after hill, and each hill has a point where you can just stand and take in all of the Willamette Valley. But then you go up to the next, and you can see even more. It's prettier than a girl at her first May Day. I dismounted by one of them pools up in the wilderness and let Toe Stepper drink. When he was done, I removed his saddle. I took a solid hour just standing there, looking down on God's beauty. Toe Stepper is a disrespectful horse on the best of days, so he just flopped down beside me and rolled in the grass. I let the old horse have his pleasures. I watched him get up fast and back away from the pool. "What, you're done already?" I asked, patting his mane. "Your horse is high-spirited." I almost jumped out of my skin. I don't meet people on these nature excursions. I mean, sure, it happens, but it happens from a distance. I didn't mention this earlier, but I had a gun with me. I pulled it and pointed it at, well, probably one of the most beautiful women I have ever seen. Her red hair flowed down her back to her well-proportioned buttocks. Her face was delicate, almost too thin, but it was wonderful. Green eyes flashed behind long eyelashes. She wore a white tank top and jean shorts, tighter than a sailor's knot, no bra, and she was barefoot, standing in the pool underneath the nearest tree. "You wouldn't believe how long it took me to ride him," I said. "Do you raise horses?" "Nah, but I keep some around. Gas prices are pretty bad right now, but hay is still cheap." She gave me a winsome smile. I put away the gun, but kept it at hand. I've heard stories of men being killed and robbed by uglier honeypots. I haven't seen you around before. And I you. How long have you lived here? "Oh, I've just come back. I don't really want to talk about it." Her beautiful, perfectly proportioned face fell, and I let the matter lie. "Well, I'm gonna saddle up and head on out." "Wait, my great-grandma would beat me black and blue. I'm Gary Mikos. What's your name?" "Amy Graham. It was a pleasure to meet you, Gary. Come by again. I live just over the way." She pointed behind her, over the pool and into the hills beyond. "So I'm never too far away." I tipped my hat to her. "I'm pleased to hear it, and I hope to see you again." Now, I'm a man who appreciates a beautiful woman. I'm no Portland boy. No, a big part of me wanted to get near her, feel her delicate hand in mine. I know a few country songs, and I'm passing good at guitar. I wanted to croon to her in proper fashion. Well, I knew something was wrong. I didn't get men are lying in wait to kill me vibes, but I definitely got something from her. Beautiful women don't just wander the wastelands alone, barefoot and unarmed, even the hippie ones. Well, now that I think about it, there was a hippie colony somewhere past the nearby mountains, but they don't count, and that was miles and miles away. Or did they move? No one talks about them, and honestly, I don't care what those granola munchers get up to. She could have been a squatter, I guess. Well, I'm not going to do the government's job for 'em. And she was cute, you see. She was worth another visit. By the end of my trot home, I had convinced myself that she was a squatter, doing some hippie shit out in the wilderness. You know. It was my duty to check her out, make sure she's okay. Don't want a pretty face like that mauled by wolves. Besides, granola girls aren't that bad compared to their male counterparts. I did a little research, you know, to try and see if she went to school around here. And Amy Grant had been murdered in 1967 in one of those cults that popped up on the West Coast around then. Apparently she was drowned by her lover during some ritual. Messed up. I couldn't find anything on my living Amy, though. No high school, a bunch of brunettes. Nothing I could tell. She was a natural redhead, They're, no offense to you, Jim, but they're obvious the second you see a picture. The 1967 article were not accompanied by pictures. I'm not dumb. Well, maybe I was pretty dumb. I felt like I was in love and could barely sleep all night. And when I did dream, all I saw was rushing water and hands reaching out to me. I'm not a man afraid of water, but it was nothing but being thrown around by waves taller than planets. I tumbled and tumbled and tumbled. I tried to scream in my dream, but I could not make a sound. Not only that, but the sounds I tried to make were stifled. I couldn't even splash. Hands. So many hands dragged me under the surface, and I would splutter and roar in the water. I couldn't move, except so slowly that it was like I was drowning in syrup. I'd push away from one of those hands, only for 3 more to grab my skin and pull me down deeper. I woke up covered in sweat. Well, I got my chores done early. Maybe I spritzed a little of the good stuff on my neck. You know the place. Just right where a girl puts her cheek, above your chest but below your chin. Man, I can't let it go. I took my guitar with me. I had searched some of my great-grandma's old books for songs about water nymphs. She had a few. Mostly about heartbroken women turned into evil spirits. That's where I got the name Rusalka. I played around with that one and had a simple set of bars. It was a pretty good story. I liked it. All the way up the mountain to Amy's pool. A young girl fell in love with a prince. After a year of romance, he rejects her because his father wants him to marry a foreign princess. She drowns herself, and then starts dragging people down into the depths, waiting for her true love's kiss. It's good stuff. Girls love drama, and romance. I knew what I was doing. I was going courting. My nightmare and poor sleep aside, I was dwelling on Amy's long legs, and you better believe that I'd be living there too, soon. I got to the top of the pool and found her there, feet in the water, lounging on the bark of a bent tree. She was still wearing that tight white tank top and double tight jean shorts. Hey, Gary, didn't think you'd come so soon to visit me. Not that I'm complaining, she said, arms over her head. I got off old toe stepper, guitar in hand. I cursed myself for a fool. No flowers. I got close, sitting on a rock near the water. I laid the accent on thick. I've never been to the South, or the Great Plains, but I drawled the best of them. I was smooth. I was the Marlboro man and the most interesting man in the world, all rolled up into one. Well, Amy, I figured you might need some company, maybe some music to pass the time, and I'd like to get to know you better. Oh, I'd like to get to know you too, Gary, she said. She rolled onto the shore. It was a grassy bank, covered in thick bug-filled stalks. Her thighs were in the water, but her feet kicked in the air. Her delicate hands upheld her sharp chin. Her mouth was open in an O shape, like I was the most interesting thing she had ever seen. Her eyes shone, and I was falling in love. I started to play. She clapped at the song I made up about the Rusalka Slavic fairy tale. Then she knew some older country songs. I only knew the tunes too. Sang her a few Johnny Cash pieces. I can't imagine what it looked like from the outside. A beautiful maiden showing off a little too much, but keeping enough back to be modest. On her knees in the water, singing with a guy who was trying too hard to be a cowboy. Cowboys are an American romance. The Lord God expects us to live rightly, to a code of conduct. I would sooner cut my own throat than touch another man's woman, cattle, or land. It's common decency, and I'm no vulture. That's the world I want here. I was decent to her, and she ate it up. Maybe I crooned a little too hard. Maybe I was a little too attentive. But if a lady is willing to be courted, and she didn't have a ring on her finger, well, I was feeling old-fashioned. There are rituals that run as deep as the blood that flows through my veins. Maybe I was a fool. I was a fool. She got close, and I got closer. By the end of my little song set, I had rolled up my pants to my knees and had my feet in the water. She was draped across my chest, head right at that part of the neck that I'd spritzed the good stuff. She rubbed my chest just right, and then jumped in. "Come on, swim with me," and she dove in, and I dove in after her, shirt, pants, cell phone, and all. That pool was a little deeper than I knew, and I swam after her, and she met me under the still surface of the pool. We kissed. An air bubble grew between us. I laughed at it. I didn't understand what it was, but I was delighted by the kiss and the air bubble. She drifted outside the edge. She did not laugh. I didn't know how she had applied the eyeshadow, or the blue lipstick, or... That's when it hit me. She was the Amy that drowned all those years ago. I didn't know where she had been buried, but I was willing to bet she'd been buried in that church that burned down. They had desecrated the graves, and a ghost was swimming before me. Her eyes hollowed out, the eyes shrinking to dried peach pits. Her cheeks sunk to her teeth, then disintegrated into dust. Her teeth had been white, but now they were gray as dust. Her skin flowed away, floating in the water behind her. Underneath was nothing more than roots wrapped around sticks. And that's when I screamed, and the bubble popped. So I turned aside, pushing her away. She was trying to reach out to me, clinging onto my sleeves. She wanted to pull me closer to her. I looked down, trying to find some sort of rock to push against, some ground. Below, there were hundreds and thousands of dead looking up at me, their eyes alight with a starlight as cold as ice. They reached up, claw-handed and grasping the dark water. Their mouths were moving. I could hear them, but no bubbles came past their teeth. Once we were like you. We have been brought down here since the dishonored daughter of Cain drowned herself so many years ago. Soon, you will join us. Soon, you will be like us. I swam for the surface, but she grabbed my heel, dragging me down closer. I struggled with her, racking my brain for information. I couldn't take it. I wanted to scream again, but I had no air. I knew this pool couldn't be more than 8 feet deep, even after a rainstorm. I could see that I was so close to the surface, but no matter how I stretched, I couldn't break the tension. I remembered the air bubble from the kiss, and I kissed her again. My lips smashed against her teeth. Something moved underneath her gum. Bile rose in my throat, but I swallowed it down. I can remember every taste, every sensation. I almost preferred death. Relief came slowly. The air bubble formed, blew out to cover both our heads. In the air bubble, she was a beautiful woman again. Why are you doing this? Why drown me? I thought you loved me. I do love you. I want you to be with me forever. We can be. I was promised that not even Judgment Day can stop our love. Love me. Love me. I looked into her eyes. They were living, bright, laughing, and more. But I remembered her dead eyes, shrunk to horrible, wrinkled pits. I saw the grasping hands impossibly deep below. I can't love you. I want to live. She looked at me, shocked. Tears, real tears, burst forth from her eyes. She let go of my arms and clothes. The air bubble popped, and she floated away. I swam to the surface. I could barely keep myself from swallowing water. I surged forward. My hands broke through, and my feet churned against the silt on the shore. I felt something brush my knuckles. I grabbed onto it. Something pulled me up and out, over the edge, up into the air. Toe Stepper was standing just offshore. He flicked his mane and watched me struggle onto dry land, clinging to his reins. He walked next to me, and then nudged me. He whinnied in a way I knew he was hungry. I guess there are worse reasons for a horse to save its rider. I spent a long time on the shore. Every time I found a little strength, I shimmied a little farther away. Eventually I pulled myself up by my stirrups, a mounted toe-stepper, and he walked down to the farm. I got to admit I looked back. I saw her standing near the tree, watching me. I went through my great-grandmother's papers until I found you guys. I know I let the payments lapse since I couldn't put a company to the $99 fee, but I'm glad you came anyways. I confirmed that Amy was buried in the Baptist church. I put up a sign around the pond, warning people of an underground current. She's still there. I don't know what else to do. Can you guys help me?
Gary, we certainly can. I happen to have some contacts and tricks that'll take care of you. Don't worry about the fees or past due balances. I'll get a new contract whipped up. We've just been through a drastic reorganization, so there are no penalties or sign-up fees. While you're signing, I'm going to get on the phone with a friend in the Vatican. We'll get her in a non-desecrated graveyard as fast as we can. After that, well, I have some fun tricks that I can pull on that pool. Rusalkas are supposed to be decently powerful. It'd be a shame to let that go to waste. Pinkerton's Ghosts is a podcast distributed by Superversive Radio, licensed under an attribution non-commercial, share-alike international license. This episode is written by Ben Wheeler and is performed by Chris Ropp. Ben Wheeler edits, directs, produces, and herds cats. Kid Dickason performs our audio editing. Visit us on Facebook, read articles on superversivesf.com, or listen to us on unauthorized Acast, iTunes, or Spotify. Contact us through Twitter at @PinkertonsGhosts, email us at pinkertonsghosts@gmail.com, or send us noble messenger possums with messages strapped to their backs. Don't worry, they know how to find us. Thank you for listening, and good luck.